To Next Big Future. I have Randy with me. We're gonna go over and ignore video, and I'm gonna show a deck of um, some information here. Sorry, just let me get that going here. Okay, so here we have the video on the Model Y from China. So 95% built by robots, 2.5 hours per car. This is huge. And then, of course, the mega castings, um, 1,000 Model Ys every day. Okay, so that came from Mario and from um, Soy America. Okay, so let's go into the deck to explain what it means, and then also this matters for tomorrow's low-priced car.
Okay.
So, oops. So let's go into the slideshow. Let me, oops, go back to the beginning. Okay, so everyone's anticipating the low-priced car. So that's really what the headlights are. Is it a low-priced car? Is it the 30K car?
Something's happening with your sound.
Right? Can you hear me?
I can, but you talk for a little longer.
Okay, so 35K car. So we have the picture of the headlights, and then clearly the 35K car, the headlights seem to be the same. Look at the tires, um, and those on the vehicle, close up, that looks like the spinning thing to the side. So it looks like lights, and the spinning of the tires looks like the low price car. As they speed it up, it seems to blur into it, so it looks correct. So how does this relate to the Model Y? So Model Y, 95% robot made, mega casting to replace a lot of the things, 2.5 hours per car versus 10 hours per car before for a Model Y in Shanghai, from the beginning of the factory, start production to the end. Not the 30, every 30 seconds one comes to the end, but the
Right.
overall time to make it. Which against Volkswagen, they were talking like 30 hours. Herbert Diess talking about like 30 hours to make their car.
Right.
So 2.5 hours per car is like 4 times faster than Tesla was going before, and 10 times faster than the competition. And 1,000 mile miles per day, that means 7,000 mile miles per week, 84,000 91,000 Model Y capacity potential for the quarter. So then the question is, how many Model YS or lower price vehicles if you have this next level production? Because it's highly automated or things that they're doing. So how they haven't gone high scale on Tesla bots, but they have their other manufacturing process. And the slides, the screenshots from the video that we saw, Model YL, 95% built by robots, 2.5 hours per car, right? Mega castings for this thing, and 1,000 Model Ys per day. So those are our next level numbers for it. More than, toward the high end of what I was expecting. I was hoping for that kind of number to go beyond 5,000 per quarter, which would balance things out. And now it looks like if this is all happening for Model YL, where they had 4,000 the previous week, they could easily get to, without too much strain, 5,500 to 6,000
Mhm.
in a week, for these coming weeks. That is a huge amount of delivery. Not sure how many they'll export. So we get the insured weekly from China, I guess, tonight or tomorrow. We'll start getting those numbers. So
So
go ahead.
far, so far, checking around, I haven't done the checking around myself, but I've been asking, and so far, I don't think it's on any of the export countries uh list, websites yet.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. And then tomorrow we'll get, I guess, perhaps pricing on a lower priced vehicle. I think that's pretty clearly what it's going to be. We'll see what the announcements are tomorrow. Anything that you've heard? And also, the share prices recovered back to 454 after selling the news, dropping for a couple of days after a really good third quarter number. And if we have on sell the news as well as concerns about the Q4 volume numbers, but now we're coming out with FSD 14 releasing today, and then the what looks like the new vehicle announcements of a low price vehicle, which would resolve any concerns about how many cars they could make or sell for many, many quarters. It would take that concern away. Not sure how fast they could ramp. No,
So here's a
yeah, go ahead.
whoops, your sound cut out again. Here's a couple of questions that you just raised in my mind, and I don't know why I didn't think of this the other day. And what I'm really shocked at is that you didn't say anything about it. So if we can make 7,000 Model Y longs a week or 1,000 a day with this new line with 95% robots, et cetera, all the things that you just said, then why wouldn't we be making the same number of Model Y S's or Model Y, whatever it's going to be, standard, short, whatever it's going to be? Why wouldn't we be able to make just as many of those if they're employing the same methods and processes to that they've done to the long? Whoops, sound is gone. Sound is gone.
Mhm. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can.
Is it working?
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would think that they've been preparing for the last 18 months that they would be getting ready to deliver the lower price vehicle with the new manufacturing process and with higher volumes. Um, and
So
the
then,
potential is huge that they could, I'm not sure if they have it ready right away, if there's some ramp times, but it should be very, very good. Like getting to 2.5 hours of production times. And if they have set up the lines of 95% robots in Berlin and in Austin, where they have the room to do it, that would mean it would very little be dependent upon how good the China workers are compared to the Austin workers compared to Berlin, because only 5% of the vehicle involves any manual labor, because the rest is robotic. So then they would have the same equipment.
and as one person put
Sorry,
it
I
on
can't hear
X
you.
today, what they have the humans doing right now is just standing around and watching. And hey, Optimus can already do that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you can get rid of the last 5% with Optimus. Okay, so then we take the next step. Next step would be, why wouldn't we be able to make Model 3s? Now, maybe they have to shut down the line, or maybe it's going to take them a while to use all these same methods to do Model 3 as they're doing with Model Y long and or short and or Model Y standard. It would seem like the entire line now should be able to move over to this. And at that point, with that kind of throughput, it would seem like the Shanghai factory can produce a lot more cars than it is now. Now, before I let you talk, clearly, if you're trying to put that many more cars through the line, you've got to have that many more piles of product, raw materials, product parts, etc., sitting, that's got to have a place in the factory, in the warehouse, to be able to feed those lines. So it's not a direct increase you know, uh, from 10 hours to 2.5 hours of 4 times, but you still, out of the same exact factory imprint, you should be able to make a lot more cars.
It seems like a double, if not fairly, quite soon. Um, it would seem within 6 to 12 months you would get there, that you would be ramping towards a far higher number for this thing. And you're switching over the different vehicles. So because that 2.5 hours is just, it's the 4x, it's at least the 3x from what they had before. So it seems like it would be a lot of vehicles. And the 95% robot construction is, again, far higher than anything else we've heard of before.
Yeah, so
Um,
that would lower costs.
right.
So now we're talking about, because you're getting more use of the factory,
Mhm.
you've got lower labor cost per vehicle. And now we're talking about this low cost car.
Mhm.
Certainly, we might be talking about hitting that $25,000 number in China. not in the US, but the Model 3 standard, or maybe even the Model Y standard, because my recollection was that there wasn't a lot of difference in the cost between those two,
Mhm.
is that we could be looking at sub 30 for both of those, if it's using these processes.
Aims down per day if it was line, because I think they have the lines in China for a two wide line, two, three line.
Back up, back away. Something again, you're losing your sound. I'm
Sorry.
sorry. I think if you,
It's,
yeah,
so see that,
no, 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 it's breaking up.
okay. Well, why don't
That's
you?
it. That's good. That's good.
Yeah. So it's a question of how of the
Oh,
of the YL line can they get multiple of the Y get. Um.
still breaking up. I'm sorry.
Okay. Um. Okay. Can you hear me
I
now?
can.
Okay. Let me get to. Okay. So, how many multiples of the YL line can they get in China? Like if they're making YL and they're making Y mini and they're making some version of a 3, then currently they've been hitting max about 22,000 or so, 23,000 per month. Um, you know, one just 1,000 per day, you can get in a month, you could get 30,000 YLs if you're going all out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if they, but I don't think they're only making YLs, they're making that and other things. So that would suggest that the production could be just insanely high. So
That's what it sounds like. And so if you're able to either increase their production or use less factory space, which happens when you do this. So if the opposite of what I talked about a minute ago, if you reduce, if you if you say I still only need 1 million cars a year,
yeah,
900,000 whatever cars a year out of Shanghai, or I only need 900,000 of my Model Y across the board, Model 3 across the board. That's all I need. I don't have any more demand than that.
yeah.
Then you're going to be able to do that in a smaller footprint,
Mhm.
which makes more space to do cybercams, which you and I already talked about. You thought I think you were the one that said it a while ago. You think with the last factory rearrangement, they already made the space for the cybercams.
Right. Yeah, I think that they were moving things around in order to save space and to make that happen. Right. Um, yeah.
So this would be then if you and then you alluded to it a minute ago. If you take this same capability.
Mhm.
Not you and I probably have no idea whether we're talking about months or weeks or how long it would take. But if you take the same capability and you apply it to Fremont, to Austin, and to Berlin, you should be able to either increase the capacity in those locations or reduce factory footprint that you're using for those existing vehicles.
Yeah, and it's a huge 4X. So it looks like a lot of unboxed process as well as the robot building it. So it seems like that kind of step level change that we were hoping for from the unbox process. That if I'm making everything in parallel and then putting it together, right?
Mhm.
And to do that instead of 10 hours, to do it in two or something like that. To get to 2.5 hours is seems like a lot of parallelization, a lot of stuff has been done. It's not just a um, incremental change that we're talking about. And again, if applied to Austin and Berlin, and I mentioned Fremont, it would then mean from existing factories a 2x, 3x, 4x level of production. Um, and it seems like it would have to be a lot of unboxed as well as automation. Things that we're kind of hoping for from um, human bot as well as unboxed. That this seems to have happened in China in the past tense in that factory.
Right.
and to go to the next level of production, right? To potentially hit 50,000 vehicles per month, for 12 months, it'd be 1.8 million vehicles. It'd be like doubling production or more from that factory.
Yeah. So okay. So then the other side, the flip side of that same coin is that, and I started to talk about this a minute ago with regard to just the Model Y and Model 3 in Shanghai. But now if we are able to use this process, let's say in the United States, there's a bunch of different people out there. I think you and I might have even done a little bit back and forth on X about this that have come up with a pretty reasonable estimate that the Model Y S, if you will, could be done at 35,000 out the door.
Right.
That did not include this new process.
Right. Right. They include a new process.
So
And
the process could get us under 35,000 if all of this is true.
right. And the things like how much human labor you had per vehicle. If it only takes you 2.5 hours, if you were somehow adding up to 10 hours worth of labor and you drop to 25% of that to go to
Yeah.
2.5 hours, then you're taking out insane amounts of cost. So, and then if you're getting more CapEx, um, vehicles per CapEx
Right.
out of this whole thing,
Right.
then again, it's totally changes the equation of what we're talking about. Like the old assumptions of we only do things like reducing the weight, reducing the amount of batteries, um, component cost to decontent the vehicle. But if we were combining that with next level production, then that totally changes everything that we're talking about in terms of like potential production. And it could, they could use it for increased margin, but it seems like they're going to use it for um, lowering costs.
Plus,
If I get the cost down, get the volume up, then they go next level in terms of cost they can do. They could drop to your point, 25,000 in China, 30,000 in the United States. It would, and then double the production, because that part of that lowering of cost is to spread out the um, the fixed costs of the factory
sure.
against the volume of units. So more units means that overall costs go down.
And according to everybody we know, even Gary Black would agree with us that you've also increased the TAM if you lower the price.
Right, right. And
Sorry,
especially, yeah,
Gary. I keep picking on you.
yeah. And then that potential of hitting the super critical price points
Right.
would be huge. And even if it's not right away, if that's the
Yeah.
path that we're on of getting,
Right.
and those would be huge announcements in any of the meetings to say what's going on in the factories, how did you achieve this, and what's the costs that are happening there.
Yeah. So again, to your point, this could be something that would be phased in over the next 12 months. No other car company could possibly even begin to catch up with any of the ideas. Were you the one that posted on X? Maybe that was you. You said something about this announcement, this video is the beginning of the end for all the rest of the car companies.
I don't think I posted
No,
that.
you think you said that?
No, no, I agree with it, but I didn't post it. Um, it took a bit of time for it to think that's huge, but it was like it was so transformative that I was trying to like process it. How what would it mean? What's happening with it? And, it took time for me to kind of like percolate around how game changing it is, and because everyone was obsessed with FSD, I was obsessed SD14. There's some
Right.
rumors about volume production of Tesla bot, so there was so much news going on, and then that video was like it had huge jaw-dropping, world-changing things in it,
Right.
and it was just like, but it's just like it whizzed by. It's YL.
That's interesting. Another factory tour by drone. Yeah.
Right, right, right. But it was like, the fact is 2.5 hours per car and 1,000 per day. Because 1,000 per day means 30,000 per month off of one model.
365,000 a year if it's operating every single day.
Right, right. Just
It won't do that, but let's say it's even 300,000 just for that one model.
right, right.
And
So
that model we would anticipate that long is only going to be, a fraction of the total number of Model Y regulars that we sell, or the standard, the one that we sell now. Much less Model 3s are also going to be at least as much as that Model YL, we would think. Again, depending on price and everything else. Very, very interesting. Okay. So,
okay, we can talk about the other regular stuff. The price going back up, other
right.
things that you want to discuss. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's, I think the other thing to think about, Brian, right now, as we get into the stock price, is you are basically breaking this news.
Mhm.
I read so much every single day in terms of headlines and so much every day in terms of what people are posting on X. Nobody's posting this.
Right,
So this is basically ground zero on this idea right
right,
here on this channel and
right,
his channel too.
right.
And, because we're going to put it up on both. Um, if the rest of the world, or even the rest of the folks in the community who pay attention,
Mhm.
recognize that what you're saying is true, and I don't see how they can not. This could have ramifications for the stock too,
Right,
because it gives a massive bump, potentially margins, potentially total unit sales.
right,
I mean, just boom, 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 boom.
right.
Everything would potentially change based on this one factor that
Right.
so far nobody's paying any attention to.
Right. That if the factories have gone next level or
Right,
in the process of going next level, and this race started, because we
right,
knew it was going to happen,
right,
but now we're saying that it started with YL,
right.
right? And then, perfected in the Cybercab line in in Austin, right?
Mhm.
So because they're going to use definitely the same or even more advanced production for the Cybercab.
Right.
And then they'll go with, more than 1,000 per day, right? That they could go
Yes.
to, for because they'll do multiple lines of it and mass construction, something like that. So they would go to, again, thousands of vehicles per day on that. Um, and the construction time would be even less than 2.5 hours
Right.
for a YL, because the YL, the more complex vehicle,
Right.
the Cybercab, they could drop to 1.5 hours, 1 hour for a Cybercab, which is again on the high end of what people were thinking, and they thought it would take years to do. Uh,
Interestingly, coming back to my that thought earlier, that the question of, where do you put all the components,
mm,
uh, 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 this could become the next question.
mm,
Now, maybe they've already answered the question because obviously they've been thinking about this for a very long time.
mm.
So they may have already said, okay. I mean, I know, for instance, I think it's in all factories, they have doors,
Along the
resistant
sides, yeah,
doors all along the entire length of the building.
yeah,
And so they can literally bring in truckloads and have them sit there until they're needed. They don't need to turn them around, they don't bring them into the factory and put them on a shelf someplace like I would have done in my
mm,
factory and then take them off the shelf and bring them over. No, they take them right off the truck, as talk about just in time. They come off the truck and they go to the line. And
mm,
that truck pulls out, another truck pulls in.
yeah,
And so that's already creating massive efficiencies compared to a normal factory. But maybe there's other things like that would be also more next level, that they're having to think about in terms of being able to throughput all the raw materials and components.
right, right. It would be logistically challenging because your rate of deliveries, if you're doubling production, would be doubling. It would
Right.
it would be a traffic throughput thing. And if you could get to 4 times, you'd just be again that last mile of logistics into the factory coming from these other places may need more roads and other things to feed into it. It would be, it- yeah,
A big
insane in
deal.
terms of what could happen. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the stock price for a minute. So the weirdest part about this, well, there's two or three things. I mean, okay, we're all pretty excited. We're above 450 again, probably heading towards 470 tomorrow. That would be a good guess, I guess, since 470 is kind of where we topped off last time. But what I thought was weird about this particular run up was last night it started a couple of like pretty much right as the overnight started at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it just kind of started going up and then it kind of went up a little faster. And it just kind of went up, 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 up. And it didn't, there was a big swing at the opening.
Mhm.
But pretty much it just kind of slowly drifted up overnight and all day today. Did you think that was a weird pattern?
It was just like such huge good news. FSD coming out, 14 coming out today. The tomorrow looking like it's a low cost vehicle coming out. Um, it was all the good news you're hoping for the week. So it was more and more people believing it and just knowing, okay, I got to bid more for the stock.
Okay, it was also very low volume, 55 million. So
Mhm.
is that suggesting no sellers or is that suggesting what?
I think yeah, fewer sellers
Fewer
that
sellers. So nobody's ready to sell yet.
yeah, because if you now you know, okay, all the good news that you're hoping for, FSD 14 and low cost vehicle, um, and hearing some rumors of some Tesla bot news that's good as well. It was like all the news is good. There's going to be no problem with Q4 deliveries. And then the earnings call is going to be good. So it's like, why would I rush to sell my shares? So yeah.
I had one guy on X who I forget his name, but he's one of the regular posters who considers himself an expert, especially in the technical side, I think. And he was saying that he did trim today. And he trimmed today because he said he figured that the good news was in and there was too much of a risk that the price point would be over 35,000 tomorrow. And that would probably, if it's over 35,000, he thinks that'll hurt the stock on Wednesday.
I think the people who are looking, let's say there was a dip, they were selling the news, you know, last week, it hit 470 and then, oh, it went down to 430 and then now it's turning around. So I think we're in a series of moves that if you can time the dips, because they can be so short, they can be short and violent, right?
Yeah.
That you know, you should be some kind of billionaire or something like that, because you'll have some kind of like magic, predicting the flows thing. They can call it every day. Because on Friday, as we were hitting toward new lows, you think, okay, it's probably oversold, something like that. But to say, okay, it's gonna have news that you're gonna say, okay, Monday for FSD 14, and then dropping the videos and pictures saying, okay, here's the low cost vehicle. If we're in that heavy cycle where you get all this positive news, and you're missing things like this video about YL talking about factory production, all that kind of stuff, that the news is so good and the thing is turning around so much that trying to trim and catch the stuff is going to be very, very hard.
All right. Somebody else put up a nice picture. It was a gorgeous picture. Apparently, we have a like almost perfect cup and handle.
Yeah, that was, I think, Jeff Lutz, I think. Huh?
Okay, yeah, that's right. It was Jeff Less. I am way out of my league now. I have no idea what a cup and handle is, whether I should care about it. But Jeff was suggesting that it's a very good sign.
It's a technical trading configuration, so you get a really long dip, and then the handle going down like that, and then it indicates that after the cup and handle, basically the stock shoots up, and because it's such a large formation, that the amount of stock shooting up, you know, is potentially up to like 1,000 something like that. It's like a really potentially really large move that is indicating if that's the formation.
Okay. All right. So let's see. There was other news. Da 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 da. To what about yeah, okay. So no FSD 14 sightings yet. This was as of the minute before we came on. I was
Okay.
still checking it minute by minute,
Hmm.
and nobody has seen any, nobody's received their FSD 14 yet. So that was a little bit of a, there's a lot of day left.
Hmm.
So we'll see what happens as the day progresses. Then there was a bunch of rumors about Archer Aviation.
Hmm.
Now, the rumors were partially to do with the little video, but the second video, I think pretty much the video of the wheel.
Yeah.
Some people, so okay, Archer Aviations is an HVAC,
Flying drones, flying cars.
virtual takeoff and landing vehicle is what they make.
Yeah,
I
vertical
guess
takeoff.
maybe some drones too.
Hmm.
And this is a Brett Adcock's old company.
Hmm.
Is he out of it completely? I think
Yeah,
he's
yeah, he's over in figure. Yeah.
no, but I think he's completely sold out too. I'm not sure if he has any shares.
I'm pretty sure he sold out of it.
I
Yeah.
think he's completely out of it. Anyway, but so Archer Aviation, they did a they did their own website, webpage, or whatever, and they had a picture of one of their aircraft, and there was an Optimus robot next to it.
Hmm.
So this began the rumors.
Hmm.
And then there was other things, I guess, with regard, again, people were trying to make something out of the first picture of the wheel because it could be rotors, it could be blades. Uh,
Hmm.
but anyway, we know that Elon has a VTOL drawing
Hmm.
from like 3 years ago that he said is ready to go.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What do you think the chances are that there's going to be a partnership announcement with Archer Aviation?
I put it at 0.
Zero. Okay. That's pretty low.
That's pretty low. Yeah. I think that even if, we're having a flying roadster,
Yes.
with the cold thrusters and whatever they were talking about, um, Tesla's not working with Archer Aviation to do it. Tesla's doing it themselves, right? So, one, I don't think it's they're gonna make a flying drone. Um, if any flying is gonna be with cold thrusters for the roadster. Um, they're not going to make a drone. And if they do make a drone, it's not going to be with Archer Aviation. So the part where it goes to 0 is doing it with Archer Aviation.
I see. Okay.
The part where it's extremely unlikely, 1%, 2% a drone. And I think the chance of it that being a drone tomorrow is is like practically 0, right?
Yeah.
That they have too many other things to do than to divert themselves with another drone. And to do it um, half-heartedly as a boring company, kind of like, yes, I'm doing it, but it's this other thing, is not um, the way to go at it. There's too much other stuff happening, and that market is too tiny. Like there's no volume there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he would be more inclined to do a solar a Gigafactory than he would be to do a drone right now, as much as I'd love to have him do a drone.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of mergers and acquisitions or partnerships or whatever, AMD has announced their partnership with
Open ad.
OpenAI,
Mhm.
and this makes like the third major story like this in the last week or so.
Mhm.
So now we have a picture on X today with a one of these multi-socket things that you have on your floor, and it's got the plug, the male part, going back into the female part of the same product.
Mhm.
And worried about circular kinds of deals,
Mhm.
reminding people of 1999. And I have my opinion about that. I'll let you start.
So the um, Ponzi scheme worry about um, one company investing into another company and then getting benefit off of that company is the concern is that just like if I get my own one company, NVIDIA, and then they invest their profits into themselves, right?
Mhm.
Um, are they profitable? Like if they're profitable and then the flywheel is going, then it's all positive, right? They're making more margin, making more money, making more profit, right? If I put another company into that loop, right, where I make OpenAI, NVIDIA is making profits, they're investing in OpenAI, OpenAI is investing in AMD and stuff like that. If everything is profitable along the way, then it's all good. Then it's a um, conglomerate corrects you thing, what you've seen in Japan, Samsung. Sorry, in Japan it's Mitsubishi. In Korea it's Samsung, where you have the suppliers being funded by the main companies. If everyone's making money and profits,
Mhm.
then it's all good. If you have like a bunch of losses and net losses, then it's bad. And the example of it being bad would be the Sam Bankman-Fried crypto thing, where he was losing money and then invested in other companies so they could buy his stuff on his exchange. And so that was a negative thing that could, with a house of cards, right?
Right,
So things that are a house of cards, if you're losing money, things are fine if you're making money.
right.
So then OpenAI is the weak link there. If
Mhm.
they start making money, then things are good. And if you have it with any one of the others, XAI, Anthropic, so long as along the chain that layer starts making money, then it's fine. But we know that the NVIDIA and the AMD layers are fine as because they're all making money. The TSMC
Mhm.
is all fine; they're making money. So
Mhm.
it's only the question of OpenAI. Yeah.
Okay, so they would be the weak link. And so if for some reason many, many people are very worried about Sam,
Hmm.
think he looks like he just makes you uneasy, makes you feel like there's something wrong there.
Hmm.
And there's more than a few people that think that way. And of course, Elon is not a fan of Sam at this point, even though they used to be buds. So if all of a sudden OpenAI did fail,
Hmm.
so we'll take the worst case. We'll put the stress test on all of these deals.
Hmm.
Could they take down an AMD or take down an Oracle? Could it start with a failure there and then back up the system?
Not if when Oracle and AMD and NVIDIA take the order for their chips, etc., or a data center, then if that's all paid for, they don't give them debt, right?
Yeah.
Then if they go down, then what happens is that data center, instead of being owned by OpenAI, gets sold, and then
Mhm.
XAI or someone buys it, right? So it would be written off. Um, the damage to NVIDIA or AMD could be that there could be a drop in future sales,
Sale. Yeah.
right? You could have a soft quarter or two, 3 quarters even, of no production because there was, say, 500,000 chips in there that are now kind of being resold in the situation of a collapse and paying for the dollar, right?
Right.
So, because if they were to sell it at full price, then OpenAI is fine, right? It would have to be
Right.
sold at a loss in order for this to cause some kind of cascading problem.
So there is, more and more and more conversation. Okay, so I did a video last night, which I highly recommend people go back and look at. It was some of my best work. Anyway, but a fair number of people watched it, but it was a little bit off subject. And it was talking about all the extremes that we're seeing right now, Brian. So we have the highest, gold is way off the charts, silver's off the charts, Bitcoin is off the charts. Go down the list. We've got all these, the S&P, the, the NASDAQ, the Dow, all at all-time highs over and over and over again. After 2 years of over 20% growth on the equities, we're seeing a third year, which might end up being over 20% yet again. And then you have all these people that are putting up these posts on X where they're showing these combinations of information like the top 40 tech companies are 70% of the earnings on the S&P or whatever. So we've got all these extremes that are going on. Um, my thesis last night on my program, besides talking about how the boomers are impacting all that, because the boomers own all the wealth and all the housing and everything else, besides the boomer impact, kind of the bigger theme was, yeah, we have a lot of extremes right now because we've never had anything like what we have right now to compare in history. There's
Mm,
no there's no way to compare the boomer economy that we have right now. There's no way to compare the AI thing that's happening and it's going to happen.
mm,
There's no way to compare the amount of infrastructure that's being built. I mean, yeah, you could talk about the railroads or the national highway system or the telephone or you can talk about lots of infrastructures that have been built in history, but this amount of infrastructure in this amount of time, there's absolutely no comparison. So am I wrong to say we can't even okay? uh,
I think there are comparisons, but you would have to make adjustments that if you were comparing going from agriculture to industrial revolution, you'd have to, compress the time frames because we're happening faster than they did, right?
right,
So they did it over, 50 years, 100 years to make that happen. But it was similar things in terms of going a next level. But we're going from that industrial revolution level to another next level, right? Um, it can also be compared to the rise of China, where they went from um, um, the communist period of low, a lot of agriculture and industrialization to
third, third,
true
third,
capitalist
third,
economy,
third world level.
third world level going towards first world level, right?
Right.
A compressed catch-up phase. So there, again, they had no capital markets because they had communism, and then they created capital markets and they create growth, and they had like 8%, 12% per year growth across the entire country
Right.
for multiple decades,
Mhm.
going from a very low base.
Right.
So that would be the more recent example of that. Um, and here, I think we're seeing again, so we can see there are parallels. You can consider, model things against that, the build of the infrastructure, speeding up economic growth. The speed of economic growth has not happened yet.
Right.
The full automation aspect of the economy is modeled at Epoch, EPOCH.ai,
Hmm.
where they look at if this occurs, the GDP goes up 100 times, right? So there are evidence of that. The going to 95% robotic factory is, that we discussed at the beginning of this video, is a step towards that, going toward the 100% factory, robotic factory with higher production, right? And then that would spread in the bull case, the automation case, it would spread to many, many other factories, to the SpaceX factories, to other car makers that would partner with Tesla, right?
Yeah,
To all the other,
or to bicycle water bottle factories.
right, right, yeah, and to airplanes, etc. So it would spread out from there, and then to beyond factories to services to robotaxis, etc. Right? So um, so I think we have models to compare in history, and then we have new models trying to model what could theoretically happen, and then to track the actual data of actually achieving it.
So Larry and I on our show yesterday morning, where we do the Kathy Wood thing, we also kind of came up with a little bit of a theory together, which said this could be America's leap, if you will, uh, the kind of leap that China did, or that some of these Middle Eastern countries have done, kind of the leap in manufacturing where you cut out an entire 20 years of playing around, experimenting, and making things better, you just you don't have to go through all the infrastructure that the example would be the cell phone.
Mhm.
So, some of these even third world African nations, they didn't have to build any telephone wires. They went
Mhm.
straight to cell phones.
Right.
And so there was a tremendous amount of infrastructure that didn't have to be done. So it was like leaping into modernity on that level. And what our idea was is that we may be leaping into modernity right now with regard to manufacturing by virtue of this huge onshore effort or onshoring effort, which is being combined with massive amounts of capital inflow that could take like pharmaceuticals and some of these other areas that make sense and literally create another manufacturing juggernaut that would be beyond any of the other countries' capabilities. The proof of that would be, you just pointed out, would be if Tesla is going to build the 95% robotic factory here in the United States as well as in their facility in China.
Right. And really going to the 100%
Right,
robotic factory, that this 95% is just
right,
a step
right,
along the way
right,
to a full automation thing.
right.
Um, and if the AI robotic scenarios are happening, then yes, it's going across every part of the economy. And these are just the early signs that this is really happening. And even if that was only it, only 100% automated factories, only at 5 to 10 times the productivity, it would by itself drive a huge revolution and a huge boost in overall GDP and in corporate profits, et cetera. But I think it's part of this larger wave of AI and robotics.
Exactly, exactly. All right. Well, that is all I had on my list for today.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think to the point is that this is in motion. We have to um, keep checking against what is actually happening and the degree and how much it spreads. Because the point is the difference between it being true and happening and not, or some degrees of how much, is hugely impactful. The difference between 100x economy, 10x economy, 5x to some kind of bubble collapse situation. I think the bubble collapse situation is not happening, and that concerns about OpenAI's health or those kind of things um, will they can run on funding for many years,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The fact that they're at $500 billion valuation, they're going to be able to convince to get money from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, UAE, SoftBank. So, and then they are generating some level of profitability, right? Whether they can become the ultimate winner, so they can still be okay, not be a financial collapse, but then not still be the ultimate winner and still be kind of okay because they've got a billion users, $18 million in profit. They can, you know, there are many scenarios where things kind of work out, and also very scenarios where they win.
All right, so let me come back to the bubble thing again, because the other thing that people are talking about on the bubble is the same thing you and I have been talking about for at least 2 years since this whole AI thing started erupting, which is the whole thing, the entire AI thing, reaching bubble stage. And somebody ran a poll, and in their poll, it turned out that 2/3 of the people answering the poll thought it was in a bubble, AI in general is in a bubble, and that there needs to be a big pullback. 1/3 said no. Um, and your admonition to me has been, and I believe you because you're smarter than me. Well, that's not the reason. Anyway, anyway, your admonition, if I understand it right, has been no, and I've heard this, by the way, on lots of other high tech podcasts like BG2 and the All In guys and whatnot, is that the amount of work to be done in things like disease and things like physics and things like materials analysis and whatnot, the amount of work to be done is a lot. There is so much. that we haven't done yet that can be done if we had the amount of compute. Sam Altman may have said over the weekend, I think it was Sam Altman said, what if we're sitting here and we've got 180, we've got $10 billion to spend, and we're trying to decide whether to spend it on curing cancer or getting our children's education to be 5 times more effective than it already is today. Or he didn't, this is not a quote. This is generally what he was saying. He says, which one would we do? You know, and his answer would be both. His answer would find another 10 billion. And that the amount of compute that's going to be required for tutoring our children alone, that amount of compute is going to be massive because it's all inference as the child is asking the tutor questions, and the tutor is responding, and the tutor's training, and the tutor is trying to figure out the emotional status of the child at any given moment, and whether the teaching method it's using is most effective on this kind of child. I mean, the amount of inference is going to be just out of this world. So is that still the answer? It's just that there's so much work to be done that we're nowhere near a bubble.
It's also that we are going to be able to solve the big problem and get a lot of value out of it, even if we have to put together a bunch of agents and systems and kind of like it would be more moving parts than you would want, more um, architecting a system as opposed to just having one magic box, right? That we have enough working that we can architect, just like we architected um, protein folding to solve it, right? Or we architected FSD enough to do some level of robotaxi, right? It took longer, systems, many parts kind of working together versus a single system that just does all the driving and everything is working simply with just one AI. That we have to work with several, just like it's being done by NVIDIA for chip design. So the big problems are being solved. If it involves more work, it's actually needing to have more AI researchers and talent and programmers to, humans are still in the loop, but you're
Yeah.
still getting your 10x productivity. So having 10x productivity with humans in the loop, that by itself, which seems to be, we're kind of there, is like, that alone means this current level of spending it still works out. The question is, can we go even beyond that to a next level? I think the question is, I believe that the next level can happen, but I believe that enough value is already here that just completing the work and executing upon that is sufficient to, I say, the work to be done to get the value out of the whole effort.
So that kind of reminds me of a post that went up yesterday, I think, where I was using you as my expert to say that we would, I know somebody was, again, Sam Altman said, we'll be putting these data centers in space.
I think Bezos said that for Sam Altman, yes.
Bezos said it. Bezos said it. I responded, it says, no, Brian Wong says we'll be putting them on Mars.
Yeah.
Somebody shot back and said, the latency is too far for Mars. And I said, I said, you'd have satellites between here and Mars, or some kind of devices between here and Mars. You'd have lasers going from satellite to satellite. So yes, it would still be more latency, but it would be okay. How did I do?
Basically, we're doing the training and the reinforcement learning on
Oh,
Mars.
okay.
And then the fact that it takes you, 10 minutes or 30 minutes to transmit it back, or like 5 minutes to send it back to here is irrelevant because then you would run the models here,
I got you.
but you're doing all the training work over there. Just like I do all the training work in Memphis, or
Right.
they do it in Stargate in Texas, and then it goes to run on other system servers or locally on your AI6 chip or whatever, right? So you'll run the models locally to get your answers, your ChatGPT. But
Mhm.
GPT-4 or GPT-10 or Grok 9 are trained elsewhere, like on Mars, for 2 years, a year, and then we get the model to come down. So we're just transmitting the model. Yeah.
Okay, and then later tonight, Brian White will be on, and he and I got into a discussion about the the moon mission that's
Mhm.
coming up. That Tesla is taking us to the moon, and I haven't spent a lot of time
SpaceX.
really. I'm sorry,
SpaceX is taking us to the moon.
SpaceX. I haven't really spent a lot of time looking at that particular project. Um, and the conversation was all about refilling the Starship, or maybe it's not a
Refueling.
Starship.
Yeah, Starship. Yeah.
It will be Starship. Okay. The the conversation was about Starship and how many uh, refilling
Fueling. Yeah.
refueling centers would be needed to get to the moon.
Uh,
And Brian's thought that it had something to do with the amount of weight that was being taken to the moon. And I didn't say anything negative about that because I didn't have a clue. So does that matter very much? And or why do we need so much refueling to just get to the moon?
um, so the design of the because we're sending a 1,000 ton Starship, right? So that's the upper stage, right?
Yep.
If we were sending a tiny, like 2 ton, 10 ton vehicle, like the Apollo 11 Eagle
Okay.
capsule, right? It was smaller, right? You had the same similar size Saturn V rocket, and then you had that last thing. So they launched there, and then they had the small vehicle fueled and then taken over, right? So if
I
I go um, 50 times smaller, then I don't need to refuel because I have enough
I
fuel
see.
there, right?
I
But
see.
it's because I'm taking the huge ship with 100 tons, 200 tons of payload, then I need to do refueling. It's kind of like I go 2 stages up, and then my third and fourth stage is my refueling stage, right? So I refueled in order to get another stage out there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the full size, right? Because if you remember, Saturn, people remember the moon and Saturn V, it was like, I think it was like three, 4 stages, right? You launch up, you lose a stage, you lose another stage, and then you get up there, right? So it was like 3 stages, right? So if you only had two, then how do you do the third stage? And that's refueling. By not throwing stuff away, then I refuel it up. So I end up with like, 10% of my fuel left, and I launch up there and I refuel it. And is that effort, that process is the third stage that takes me all the way out to the moon or to Mars or wherever.
Okay. But the third stage might have to be refueled more than once.
So yes, yeah, you're refueling about 15 times, depending on how efficiently you can do it. They might be able to get down to like 8 times, eventually down to six. But then initially, because we haven't made the engines and other things quite as good, it's going to involve about like I think 12, 15 refuelings.
And in this particular venture, are they planning then once they get to the moon to retake off from the moon, or does that ship just stay there?
Um, it could stay there. The current missions, Artemis 3, involve returning
Returning. Okay.
from the moon. Yeah.
So they offload whatever payload they have, do whatever experimentations they're going to do, pick up whatever they're going to pick up, put all that back on the ship. They take off. Now, do they need refueling to get back as well?
It's mostly empty.
Mostly empty at that point. Still weighs
Mostly empty at that
uh,
point.
still the ship itself still weighs a bunch.
Right, but without the fuel, it's like 200-ton dry weight. So then, and also you take up 1/6 gravity.
Oh, okay.
So then it only needs a little bit of fuel. Just like if you remember the lunar capsule with a tiny little thing, it had almost no fuel in it and took off.
Yeah.
It separated from the bottom stage and then flung itself up, right? So it had very little fuel in it because again, 1/6 gravity. So 1/6 gravity would mean 1/36 the fuel because you have to square it in order to get how much power and energy I need. So I only need 3% of the fuel to do what I need to do to come back up.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Well, that answers all those questions. Well, I noticed that we are at 3 o'clock
Yeah.
California time. We won't have the stock, we won't have equities yet, but we should have the rest of the numbers here. If we think of enough to interest to say between now, we can stay for 10 minutes and we can see the equities too. But let's see what of value we can gain out of the numbers that are available at this point. So if we start with bonds, finally it's coming down a little bit. We did get over my 4.15 again today. We got to 4.162, but now it's down 4/10. So we're back to 14158. So I still think my 415 is the top, but it keeps on going over a little bit. How do you, that doesn't sound like a very good technical analyst to me.
Um, I think we're getting the rate cuts for sure now with the weak job numbers from the commercial side. Um, so I think we should be heading towards lower rates, taking longer than we would have expected. But I think in terms of if there's peace in God, the Middle East, and that sets up um, peace in Ukraine or something like that, those things could improve the overall global situation to set up for lower rates. Yeah, so think we're trending downwards.
Oil is unchanged so far, sitting at 61.69, which is kind of a great number. I think the oil companies and the people who buy gas at the pump would be happy if it just stayed pretty much if it just stayed right there forever. Everybody probably be happy. Natural gas is pretty high. I've done a tiny bit of checking. I think this is mostly seasonal.
Could be
As
the
we
AI stuff too.
what?
The AI demand for natural gas and power.
Oh yeah, the AI demand. But yeah, but we've been having AI demand for a long time and it's been up and down. I mean, it was down as low as like 260 and
Hmm.
now we're back up to 338. And I mean, it's natural gas. I've been watching it now for 2 years, of course, and it's so volatile. It's that's kind of a joke. It's
Hmm.
volatile. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it is. It's probably the most volatile of the commodities. So gold. Well, maybe gold doesn't show until 310 either. I don't know. It's showing unchanged. What it was at the end of the regular session, 3,976. So this morning, Brian, I finally made a call.
Hmm.
I made my call at 4,000. Yes, sure. It might. And by the way, Larry agreed with me yesterday. Yeah, sure. It could go over 4,000, just like the bonds went over 4.15. But I think 4,000 is it.
Okay. So
What do you think?
it's going to go to 4,000, then it's going to drop after that, you think?
Yeah, well, it might. Yeah, I mean, it's so close now. It's only 24 bucks away. So it goes to 4,000. Maybe it goes a little over, but this is, I, my two arguments were the argument of upside risk versus downside risk. Right now, what is the upside potential? Could it be 5,000? Yeah, sure. So that's a 25% upside opportunity. But what's the downside risk? It wasn't that many days ago. It was at 3,000. I mean, really, not that many days ago.
I think that gold, Bitcoin, Ethereum can all move together. That with the lowering interest rate, the whole Tom Lee scenario for Bitcoin to 200,000, that would suggest 5,000 for gold. That if those were kind of like moving for similar reasons around inflation or whatever other things. But that's just a theory. So if you're asking my opinion, I think it can go up. And then the other thing would be that if you're holding for a longer term,
Mhm.
then the whole economics around um, the dollar being weaker and then the harder currency or harder assets continue to appreciate because we've had this long-term trend. Like I'm not sure what the cycles are in terms of like how often it dips, but over the course of 60 years or whatever, it's been going up.
So I think this is a good question for Grok. I'm going to ask this of Grok. We'll talk about it again. I know that there is a tremendous amount in the United States and in China and South Korea of private purchasing of gold going on. Um, the number I think no the stock futures are a little changed is the headline, but the actual numbers aren't out yet, but they will be in a second. There's a lot of private individuals buying and holding gold. And I would think that retail customers for gold would be very unlikely to be traders if they're buying actual bullion. Wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. If you're buying the hard asset, you're getting delivered, then you're going to hold it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
If you were going to trade it, you'd buy some kind of digital format where you wouldn't take delivery.
right,
Right.
right. I think I want to see what kind of we know that China as their sovereign, their central bank is buying a lot of gold. We know that Uzbekistan and a couple of other countries are buying a lot of gold. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's really the big story. I think the big story might be consumers, in particular China, but in the United States. Every time Costco, they can't keep it in stock. It comes in once a month, and they go through it immediately on
Hmm.
these gold bars that they sell.
Right.
So I think it might be a lot of consumers. I got to ask Rock for that.
Hmm.
Okay, let's see. I want to know what's the dollar doing here. Mixed. So
I think the
I don't.
stocks have opened and it looks like it's not much movement on Tesla and stuff like that.
Okay,
It's,
Tesla's
it's like moving up and down like 25 cents. It's like nothing.
about the same. Okay, and yeah, so we've we've got the futures. They're not showing on mine yet. The actual futures are not showing. I think happens at exactly 3 minutes from now, but I don't know, Brian. I think I know that my mother would say I would never run out of things to say,
Okay.
but
I think we're done. Okay.
maybe I'm done.
Yeah. But yeah, big news tomorrow. We're going to find out
Yep,
what that Tesla reveal is. And then we should be getting FSD 14 either late tonight or sometime in the next probably 24 hours. Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Big. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Thank you,
Okay.
Brian.
Thank you.